Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're doing something a little different. We're going to completely look past the woo-woo, the incense, the meditation cushions, and we're zeroing in on the hard, evidence-based science of meditation. Seriously, if you've ever found yourself wondering if just sitting there and observing your breath actually does anything tangible to your physical body, well, you're in exactly the right place.
So, let's kick things off with a pretty wild question. Can sitting completely still actually change your DNA? I know, it sounds like straight up science fiction, right? But today, we're going to pop the hood on human biology and see exactly how the mental training of mindfulness shifts our physiological reality at the absolute most microscopic levels.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our roadmap for today. First up, the biology of stress. Second, the cellular aging clock. Third, rewiring the stress response. And finally, training your mind. All right, part one, the biology of stress and how we actually measure its physical impact. To really ground this in reality, let's look at a super relatable, high-pressure scenario. We're talking about medical students. Researchers over at Srinagar University took 30 second-year med students. And let's be real, this is a group chronically bogged on by exams, expectations, and just massive clinical pressure. And they put them through an intensive 4-day mindfulness course mentored by experienced monks. The core practice? Super simple. Just focusing attention on the breath entering and leaving the nostrils. The whole goal was to see if just 4 days of this could literally alter their physical bodies. And you guys, the results were absolutely staggering. Before the retreat, their average serum cortisol levels, that's your body's main stress hormone, by the way, were sitting at an elevated 381.93 nanomoles per liter. But after just 4 days of meditation, that number plummeted down to 306.38. This boldly proves a really vital point. Meditation isn't just about feeling kind of calm in your head. It is a measurable, clinical solution to chronic physical stress. Now, what's really interesting about what we're looking at here is the sheer statistical significance. You can clearly see that dramatic downward shift in the cortisol distribution at post-meditation. And why does this matter for us? Well, because prolonged high cortisol fires up your sympathetic nervous system, driving up your pulse rate and your blood pressure. So lowering it isn't just relaxing, it's actively preventing things like hypertension, peptic ulcers, and a whole host of other stress-induced diseases. Moving on to part two, the cellular aging clock, where we're zooming right in on DNA. All right, so we're transitioning from the macro level of our blood all the way down to the microscopic level. And to do that, we need to get a handle on two key biological terms, telomeres and telomerase. Think of telomeres kind of like those little plastic tips on the ends of your shoelaces that keep them from fraying. Biologically speaking, they are protective DNA protein complexes capping your chromosomes. Now telomerase, that's the incredible enzyme that actually rebuilds and elongates those telomeres. Together, they essentially act as your body's biological aging clock. So, what's the big takeaway here? Well, research published in Current Opinion in Psychology highlights that chronic stress actively accelerates that telomere shortening. It literally drives your cells toward death or inflammatory aging. But, and here's the amazing part, multiple studies show that meditation interventions can actually increase your telomerase activity in just a matter of weeks. This means mindfulness acts as a physical buffer against age-related disease, actively putting the brakes on cellular aging. But, we really have to ask the logical question here. How does sitting perfectly still actually change a chromosome? How on earth do we connect this invisible mental act directly to such profound biological shifts? That brings us to part three, rewiring the stress response and the mind-body mechanism behind it. And this brilliantly illustrates how that mind-body bridge actually works. It's all about how we process acute stress. Notice the continuous feedback loop here. On the left side, you've got meditation training. Over on the far right, you have your physical telomere biology, the crucial bridge connecting them in the middle. That's our acute stress responses and basal processes, which are entirely governed by our mental filters. Basically, there's a constant feedback loop between our brain's cognitive appraisal of a threat and our body's physiological response to it, like inflammation or oxidative stress. Let's break down the stages of this acute stress response. Whenever we face a stressor, we experience three things. 1. Anticipation of the threat. 2. Peak reactivity during the actual event. And 3. Prolonged recovery. Now, if you have negative mental filters, cognitive biases like pessimism or that awful tendency to just ruminate on things, you amplify and stretch out all of these stages. You suffer before the event, you totally overreact during it, and then you obsess over it afterward. And it's exactly that prolonged physiological damage that ends up shortening your telomeres.
So the crucial point is, how do we fix this? Let's look at part 4, training your mind and the specific meditation toolkit. To actually change those negative filters, meditation hands us a really specific, actionable toolkit. It strengthens 3 major psychological processes: meta-awareness, derealification, and perspective taking. Meta-awareness is essentially your ability to monitor your internal thoughts right as they happen. Perspective taking allows you to step back and shift how you actually view a threat. Together, these powerfully disrupt perseverative cognition, which is just a fancy way of saying that endless, exhausting loop of rumination that keeps your biological stress response locked in the on position.
Let's zoom in specifically on dereification, because this is huge. This is basically the superpower of observing your thoughts and feelings as temporary mental events, rather than absolute, concrete reality. When you finally stop viewing a stressful thought as a literal, physical threat, your body's autonomic alarm system just shuts off. You stop flooding your bloodstream with all that cortisol, and by doing so, you're actively protecting your telomeres from taking damage.
Ultimately, what meditation is doing here is cultivating a deep biological signal of safety. There's this fascinating concept out there called the generalized unsafety theory of stress. It suggests that our default state is actually to be on high alert, and our nervous system only truly calms down when it receives learned safety cues. Well, meditation essentially teaches your nervous system those exact safety cues. It explicitly tells your body that you are safe right here in the present moment, which finally allows your cells to rest, gently repair themselves, and produce that precious telomerase.
So I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to chew on. If your mental filters are actively shaping your physical cells right at this very moment, what filters are you going to choose today? Because as the science clearly shows us, mindfulness is absolutely not just some spiritual hobby. It is, quite literally, the ultimate form of cellular maintenance.